Hey everyone, welcome to Download Podcast episode 134. Tonight, I got, of course, my dad and Colin back with me. So how you guys doing?
Oh, pretty good.
Doing okay.
Yeah, so tonight we're going to be talking about a few subjects. One being the Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein movie that hit Netflix and give our thoughts about the film. And then go into actually one of the topics I want to talk about tonight as well is something that me and dad discussed earlier, which was about how that critics seem to be panning movies before they come out to get publics to not go to a film and
Okay.
make a judgment call themselves, which does end up hurting box office numbers and potential growth of a film or a franchise, whether it
And,
be just being hate mongering or whatever.
and it's not
Uh,
tied to the film itself. This is some other preconceived idea, or it's a political motive, or it's tribalism. They're not giving it a chance at all. And once you start discussing it with them, you can break down their arguments, and it really has nothing to do with the film. It has to do with something else. Um,
mhm. As well as the demise of Funko and their pop stuff, because it seems like they've oversaturated the market and no one's buying. But we'll probably go into some other stuff, so let's dive into it, guys. So Frankenstein. Um,
you know how I feel about it. I
I
loved it.
s- Still haven't seen it.
Still haven't seen it. It's okay.
Right.
Well,
Do we wanted to discuss this with him
Oh,
before he's seen?
no. We already tried this discussion with David, and that video was like the epitome of off the rails. So I'm already kind of spoilered into it. So I'm just gonna sit there and nod and smile if I don't know what's going on with a particular moment.
Well, you've read
I mean, I
the
know the story,
story. You
and there's only so many times you can see the movie. It's just who's different and what's different about this
we've
one.
yet to have a definitive movie. Like they tried to do that with Dracula, um, and they came close, but
yes.
there were just elements that were missing, and that ending just killed me. I mean, just the ending of the book would have been fine, but they had to do that love story where only she could put him to peace. And I was like, man, what a waste of Gary Oldman's Dracula. Well, they did the same thing with Robert De Niro for Frankenstein, which was really close, but it still missed on key points.
De Niro?
Yeah, he played Frankenstein, and you don't remember that?
Mm-mm.
It
Was it
was Kenneth Branagh was
yeah.
Frankenstein, was the doctor, and the guy who played Mozart uh, played his friend, and I cannot remember what his friend's name was
Oh,
in the
Tom
book.
Hollis?
Yeah, played his best friend in the book, and it came really close to the novel, a lot closer than anything else. I mean, I still love the original um, Frankenstein from the Universal, but it was really wasn't the Frankenstein story. There was many TV movies made throughout the 70s and 80s that were okay. Um, there was The Bride, which had Sting as Frankenstein, where they actually have the him creating the female and her falling in love with him instead of the monster. We've had all variations of it. There was Frankenstein Unbound, which I love, time traveling Frankenstein story with William Hurt playing the time traveling professor who goes to meet Ralph Julia's Frankenstein. Um, but we've not have a definitive Frankenstein. This comes really close, but what he does is he distills it down to the basic story of Frankenstein, which is father and son, man versus God, creationism, that kind of story. Um, it captures the loneliness that the monster felt, and it captures nature versus nurture, what drove him, because he was in this. They did what they needed to do. The Thor did what he needed to, because when he created the monster, it was a blank slate. It was basically a baby, an infant. It had cellular memory, but it didn't know who it was. That's why over time in the book, it actually became more and more of an adult. It had memories that it had experienced, because it described, it remembered things based on its body parts. So
Right.
all the lives of every part that made up its whole were there, but it didn't know how to put those together until later on in life. Um, I would have loved to have seen more of the chase, um, that cat and mouse game that was played between Victor and
The creature.
I
Yeah.
hate calling him a monster, the creature. You know, I always refer to him in my mind either as Prometheus or Adam,
Hmm.
because he refers to himself. I would have been your Adam if, if he had been accepted and raised, but you didn't give me a name. You didn't accept me. You denied me that. And then each time he reached out to do good, he was rewarded with pain and suffering, which his body, that's all he'd had from the beginning of his awakening to his final death. And then we remember, me and David had an argument once about that Robert De Niro movie, where I said that he set himself in fire in the book on a funeral pyre. And David goes, no, he didn't. He just walks off into that. I reread it. And what he says is that after his father dies and recognizes him in his final words in death, he leaves the ship, and the captain goes, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Why don't you come with us? And he goes, no, I'm going to go out and I'm going to build a funeral pyre and I'm going to set myself on it. I'm going to commit suicide and remove myself from this
Yeah.
painful world on a funeral pyre. And that's what stuck in my head. So in the De Niro Frankenstein, he climbs upon the pyre they built for Victor, and he sets him and Victor on fire. Um, so it was close, but yeah, I really, after I watched the Del Toro movie, I went back and reread it. It's kind of a quick read. Um,
Oh
it's
yeah. Yeah.
it's, it's kind of disjointed in the way the story is told. I think that Del Toro actually captured the whole monster point of view, creature point of view versus Victor's that is in the book, which you needed to have, because it was like a he said, she said. And what have I always raised you guys is, when you were a kid, the truth is always going to be somewhere in the
We're in the
middle.
middle.
And
Yeah, and that's where that was one of the aspects I did like about the movie was that once they got to the ship and he starts telling, Frankenstein tells his story, the creatures tells his story, and like the captain is kind of like the judge in between the two things. And then, they got to have that moment of reconcile before Victor dies. But one of the things that David said, they go to the wedding for his brother, and his brother gets thrown up against the base, the thing of the fireplace,
fireplace, yeah.
and
He hits his head on
I
the
thought he should have been, the way he hits that thing, I thought he was going to be dead. And I mean, he is dying, but he goes and sits there and says, like, "You're the monster, Victor," and that's threw David off. That was the thing that threw. It's like, do we really need to have a moment where a character just points out like how bad Frankenstein is?
well, I mean, remember, his brother in the book is a small child, that the monster is so enraged when he realizes this is Victor's brother. He
Brother.
kills him out of a moment of rage, and then he regrets it because he took the life of a child,
Hmm.
um, which he considered innocent. That's why in the book he tries to save the drowning girl,
Yes.
and they never explain it in the book whether it's her father or guardian shows up, sees him carrying her because she's half drowned, and then shoots him in the shoulder,
Hmm.
because he thinks, automatically assumes that just because this is something ugly or monstrous, that it's evil, you know,
Correct.
and arrogance of mankind. Like Victor is considered, he's kind of a handsome guy in the book. He's egotistical. He
Hmm.
has, his arrogance drives him to push away at people who try to reach out to him. But he is as much the monster as his creation is. And in the
Correct.
end, his creation is only a monster because of the rejection of people and denial of love to him, you know.
Right.
So
I mean, from not only his father, but from the people around him, the ones he
around
didn't
him, yeah.
understand. Yeah.
The only
Yeah.
two people ever in any of the stories I've ever liked were the father of the Gillespie. I can't remember what the name, because he was a French. Um, he lost. He was a nobleman, and he lost everything during the French Revolution. That's why they end up living in that poverty-stricken little uh, old windmill in the house next to it.
Hmm.
Um, and the or a grain mill.
I think it's a grain mill.
And the captain. Those are the only two real people with a redeeming value, except for Victor's friend, who all
Hmm.
he's ever did was care about Victor and wanted him, to try to help him and save him. And in
Which
his,
he's not even in the book. I mean, in the movie
he's
at
not even
all.
in this movie.
Yeah.
No, his
Um,
brother kind of takes that
that
place.
role.
That
Correct. Let me see what else. We had the love interest between him and his brother's wife, which was technically somebody else in the book.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was. If I remember right, she was adopted by the family and raised by the family, and was but they'd always hoped that she would marry Victor. So it was really his love in the
Hmm.
book. And his father wasn't like that. And his
No.
father dies when she dies, and then his best friend died, and all this death happening around him. His father just dies of a broken heart. In the
Well, and it's one of those things, of course. I don't know why you would need to kind of have this weird backstory that they created for Victor, where his dad was more abusive, which explains why his eccentric nature and his ego and drive. He could have had that with the fact of his like the way his mom died in the book, where she died of
right.
scarlet fever, but they didn't.
Well, and that's the thing, is that he's trying to show the Toro's trying to show generational pain and suffering passed down
Correct. Yeah.
from we pass down our sins to our family. Um, and the fact that to do that, he chose the father, and how the father approached raising Victor versus his brother. And all these names were in my head before we started, but the minute I started talking about them, the names disappear. Um, and so in the movie, he treats the youngest son, the more gentle son, the most loving. And for Victor, who is the most intelligent, he wants him to, like the slapping of the wrist. And then when he gets older, he goes, "No, I'm not going to slap your wrist anymore. We're going to start slapping you across the face." And it's all about leaving scars, that change how you're accepted in society, which plays up in his creation of
Hmm.
the monster. But I really love the detail of how he structured his creature, every muscle, I mean, they really went into the science of the day.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
It was really cool. And in oh come on, why can't I remember the actor's name? Who plays the person that the uncle of the girl, the one who funds
oh,
everything for Victor. He's in Inglorious Bastards,
oh yeah,
and
he's been in everything.
he's was in Battle Angel.
Might as well pull up IMDb so I have a list of the actors.
Yeah. Christopher Waltz. Yeah, that's what it
Walt.
was. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, because and then you had Charles Dance as the dad, which is typical, right? Because he always plays the bad father in
A
certain
bad
things,
father or the villain.
or the villain.
Yeah, I was looking for the little eye to pop out with the
Sorry, Mutz. my brother. No. Yeah, or yeah, basic. Freaking Last Action Hero.
Yep.
We got to keep an eye out for the red eye.
I was trying to the Jacob Elordi. Is that
Elodie.
Elodie?
Elode,
Man,
yeah,
he
Elodie.
was fantastic as the creature.
Hmm.
You know, his mannerisms, the way he walked, the way he carried himself, and that growth throughout the film. And I'm going to say this: I know Netflix spent a lot of money on that, but that should have had a theatrical release. I
Oh
would
yeah,
love to
it
see
should have
that
been.
on the big screen. Just the idea that they built that set for the ship, and that the ship doesn't have a name in the book, but they gave it a name in the film. Uh,
Hmm. I don't know. Maybe it was just the pacing. Like there's certain things about it I think it works better on Netflix because you can like pause it and come back to it versus sitting down. Like I sat down and watched it all the way through, but I don't know what how audiences would be with that type of storytelling versus the straightforward stuff that we've been getting lately a lot in
but
theaters.
see, if Netflix is going to do that, they should have done it as two movies.
True, they could
And they
have.
should have given us a much better adaptation. I had no problem watching it through. A matter of fact, I
I
watched
didn't
it
either.
twice within 24 hours because I
Hmm.
just wanted to look and see if there were anything I missed in it. Like some of the body parts that are all over that room, there's just so many of them you don't see them all. And just when he was like looking through them and he was going,
No,
just
yeah.
throwing them, I was like, oh man, that place must in this, it must have just been rank, you know. And when he went to the hanging, and it showed that he was just that people
He
were
was looking
treated
for
as nothing, and
they're being executed or killed, and then he just was like, okay, what he be, it's like he became completely desensitized to anything
anything, yeah, it's like
because,
nothing human about him at all. There's
mhm,
no humaneness until he met her,
yes,
and even her, man, she was just like, whoa, out there. I was like, man, I was like,
Mia Goth, I think is
yeah,
the
she
actress.
was scary.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, they did play well together. All the characters and cast was great in this film, and like, the blind man, David Bradley,
Oh yeah, from Harry
Harry
Potter.
Potter.
Yeah,
Yep,
and he played the doctor in the
yep, the
movie.
first Doctor in the movie. Yeah.
So, and he was perfect. He was truly had that character down to the book. That and he was like, I was an arrogant man until I lost my eyes, and then I learned how to judge people by their actions and how they treated people, not
Hmm.
by how their appearance, which was something that was throughout the book. That was an ongoing. I mean, not the book, in the movie. That was an ongoing reference throughout the story. Um, just I loved it. If anybody's listening to this hasn't seen it, see it. I don't want to ruin it all for you, so I won't go into any more details. But you should see this. It's less a movie and more a work of art.
Yeah, it's very much on pace of what he's done before, but I almost got the feeling like whenever he did, what was the last one he did with the? For some reason, my brain's like Lady in the Water, and that's not it. It's the.
No, that was a total
Oh,
different
I
movie.
know that was the
Uh,
other. That was
it
freaking
was
M. Night Shyamalan movie. Um,
his version of Creature of the Black
Black
Lagoon
Lagoon, yeah,
was
M. Night
incredible.
Shyamalan Ding Dong.
And like how again that was another movie that he flips everything. The monster wasn't the
yeah. That
creature, wasn't the
wasn't the
monster,
villain.
it was
Hmm.
the human. Um,
Yeah. Well, here's something else too, is that I didn't realize this, but Lars Mikkelsen is the captain. And if anybody knows who that is, he's the voice of Thrawn.
Yes,
and the
yes.
live action Thrawn for the Ahsoka series.
Go. Hey.
So that's really cool. But yeah, very, very beautiful film. Set pieces are amazing. The music was great. Every moment is just like a work of art, and you can tell that just from his interviews and when you watch the film that he really this was a labor of love. And I wish, like you've stated before, not on this episode, but like before, is that he gets to make In the Mountains of Madness.
Oh yeah. Well, that's my deathbed film, and I want it to be made by Del Toro because he sees that story the way I do. I've been waiting for that my whole life. That is my favorite H.P. Lovecraft story of them all. Um, every time I read it, I see it in my eye, the theater of my mind, and I only see him being able to capture the vastness of that underground city that they find, the otherworldliness. Um, you know, I know that he likes to say the thing. And there's another movie he refers to. What it was Prometheus wasn't what was another movie he said that captures everything he was thinking of, and I was like, but I've seen the drawings that they made, the big whistling towers, the all of that stuff. No, do your movie, man, do it. You know, there have been lots of King Kong remakes. There have been lots of King Kong movies, but the definitive one is Peter Jackson's because that
Hmm.
was his movie where both Frankenstein and In the Mountains of Madness are Del Toro's. Frankenstein, I mean, King Kong and Lord of the Rings were Peter Jackson's.
Peter Jackson's, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's
so
the
that
same
is
thing
why
with
it shows on the screen.
Hellboy. I mean, those two Hellboy movies were fantastic that he did.
Fantastic. And we're
Those were
finally
the
getting a third one. We're finally going to get to finish his trilogy.
before freaking Ron Perlman gets too old to be able to do anything. All right, so let's leap into one thing that I did want to mention that I didn't talk about in the intro is that we did get an interview with John Carpenter, and he is working on the sequel to The Thing. I am
Yes.
super excited about this. It is about time. I'm like that's it's that. I want him also to do a sequel to Big Trouble in Little China. I want an Old Man Jack movie with Kurt Russell at his age now.
You're gonna get an old man Jack, but it's gonna be
I know it's going to be McCready, but
uh,
they're two different type of characters.
they're total different characters.
I want Cameron to come back and go, all right, here's your future war. Bookend his trilogy, leave it with the future war, and we can be done.
Yeah, I think Terminator's kind of played out for a while. It's one of those that needs to kind of be put in the vault for a little bit and then let new eyes come and look at it and see what they can do with it. Um,
Well, no, Cameron needs to
well,
come
it's just
back.
like
We've had
Aliens because we had Alien, and
mhm.
I think Aliens is a superior movie to Alien, and that says a lot for me, and you know that because that was one of my all-time favorites. I was
And
obsessed with
that
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 film.
is Cameron.
And that was Cameron, and he was a new set of eyes. So what I'm saying is sometimes once like Ridley keeps ruining it, I'm sorry, he does.
Yeah.
And it's time that he kind of steps away from it and let it kind of set for a little bit and build up that want and that nostalgia, and then let somebody who has a whole new vision for it that understands the core material to come in and restart it for a new generation because they're destroying past generations memories because they just keep trying to squeeze every dime out of it, and there's no
I
heart.
I pointed out myself twice. Let me do it. I'll do it.
I know what you were doing. I will let you
I
to.
I I will I will make the best movie as long as you give me the budget. I will have the script penned and everything, and we'll go. But
I don't think we're there now with the studios anymore.
I know they're not.
Yeah.
It's just never going to happen. I mean, I was surprised they allowed Running Man to be done.
Yeah.
And he got as close, and we've talked about that. He got as close to the novel as he's going to be allowed to get because
Correct.
there's certain things that happened at the end of that book that America is not ready to accept again. Yeah,
No, we haven't been able to like get past certain things to move on.
yeah.
You memorialize it. It's there, but you don't let it stop progress from growing. And unfortunately, we're way society is right now, we're not going to be able to do that. And but this goes into the other topic because Running Man, I think, is fantastic. We don't need to talk about it until you guys see it.
And
But
tickets for tomorrow at
it
noon.
is one of those films that unfortunately, which goes to that topic that I wanted to talk about for this episode, was the fact that how like people are hating on films before they're given a chance. It's Running Man is fantastic. It is almost dead on, except for the ending, the book that Stephen King wrote as Richard Bachman. And I've I hate listening to people who pan this movie because all they ever know is the original 87 movie.
Yeah.
And that movie is great. I enjoy that movie, but it was never it's nothing compared to what that book King wrote was. And this film is pretty damn close, other than like I said, the ending. And I don't know what it is because like they were panning on Tron, they panned on Predator Badlands, which was fantastic, which is definitely another one that we need to discuss once you guys have seen it. I think that like we're at this point where there was critics that panned Blade Runner, The Thing, all
But,
these
all those movies were failures at the beginning, and it was mostly due to critics.
Siskel and Ebert and all those other
Yeah,
people panning the movies
killing it.
because
And it took a little while for them to find. It took midnight movies, special airings, friends talking it up. It took it to find the for the audience to catch up to them.
video
They were
rentals.
ahead of their
Yeah.
time.
And I can't say the same thing for certain things that Disney has been doing with other movies because what they did with Star Wars is a travesty. And we only really got one really good movie out of it, and then Mandalorian, and that's it. Other
Well, I
than,
think we got the none of the movies were any good. The first one out of the box for them was just a rehash of previous movies.
Yeah.
It told no story and
That's
it kept
fair.
all the characters in the same place.
oh, I
It
know,
like the
it was a
movie
rehash
left
of
you
A
with
New Hope.
the third movie left you in a spot where you could see where these characters were going to go. And then the novelizations, the books, the comics, and everything that came after that, which were part of continuity at one point, took them and let these characters grow to become leaders and
Oh yeah, you're talking
draw
about the
the
expanded
age and
universe.
everything. So yeah, I'm talking about the expanded universe.
Yeah.
Um, and then we get a movie, and what do they decide to do is where these you're going to make it where Leia, Han, and Luke never grew 1 inch. As a matter of fact, walked backwards.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You made the one mistake that pissed off my dad and made my dad almost walk out of Superman Returns, which was make Han Solo a deadbeat dad.
Yeah.
On top of that, you Leia became a leader in the Senate and the Republic, rebuilding the Republic after everything that Palpatine and her dad did to go and make her just another rebel who never got past it with her anger. And it's like the character didn't grow. And then Luke became Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he had no one to protect. There was
Yeah.
a reason why Obi-Wan Kenobi decided to stay on Tatooine to become a hermit. It was for Luke. And for
because
Luke to do the
because
same
Leia
thing for
he
nobody.
he entrusted Leia to Bela Organa. He
Yes.
knew that he was going to protect her and she was going to grow up and that would guard her from anybody coming to look for her heritage. But Luke needed somebody because Luke
Yep.
went to the brother of the stepfather of Anakin Skywalker. You know, so if I don't understand how the Emperor and Darth Vader and all the universe and all their connection to the dark side couldn't friggin' feel that his children were still alive. And I
Oh
understand
yeah.
Vader didn't because he was constantly in pain from everything that
And
happened.
he was in so much of an hatred
Yes.
state because of
Uh,
the fact of, not only killing his wife, also because of the fact that he lost everything to it. So he was in pain, constantly being angry. And we know the Emperor was constantly keep him in a state so that
of
we could never
anxiety,
break
so
out.
he could not
Yeah.
break from that cycle. You know
Yeah.
what? Should not. I'm still mad at Lucas because I understand people die of heartbreaks. I almost did it myself. You just give up the will to live and you just let go. But what mom who has two children born gives up her life at that moment? It should have been the emperor that killed her and then lied to Vader, which would have been the and kept that from him, which would have been the
You're not
other two
wrong.
points to drive him back to being, you know, that
to
for
Because
refining himself.
fulfilling the prophecy.
Yeah.
right. And at that point, the Emperor is the only one who is that strong and tapped into the dark side to be able to kill her from a distance.
Yes.
Because, if Snow can sit there and throw Hux on the freaking ground from like planets or galaxies away, then the Emperor could have done even more. Which was,
Well, look at Vader did it. He's force choked people to death
I know,
across
on the
the
Through a
galaxy.
hologram.
Superstar.
You know, I'm
Yeah, yeah,
sorry.
Through the
yeah.
hologram, yeah.
Yeah.
I find
Uh,
your lack of faith
it's
disturbing.
disturbing.
We're going into a whole
Yeah, I don't
Star
want to
Wars
go back
rant,
because
but
we've rehearsed all of Star Wars
hold
before.
on, hold on. But the thing was is that there was only one good movie, and that was Rogue One.
Yes.
But
The
Rogue
Rogue
One,
One
and in
and
Andor, I
everything that
forgot the
in
Andor.
Andor. Yeah.
Yeah, and in so Rogue One, Andor, Rebels, and Mandalorian. That's it.
Yes.
That's it. It's the only. I won't even say this.
Let's say I
Jedi
love.
Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order are the only two video games that we gotten that have been good since Disney took over.
Well, I mean, the Clone War was really good.
But
I mean,
Clone Wars started before the Disney acquisition.
yes, it did. Everything that
So,
started kind of before, except for Andor,
yeah.
was better than anything they put out. And again, Andor was a director who understood Star Wars, understood the political intrigue, which is what was at the core of Star Wars, besides the fight between light and darkness and politics.
Hmm.
Those are the core elements, of Star Wars, and they tried to change it into something completely different. Now, I still remember the whole thing where the fight between the Mandalorians and the Jedi, and then and all that other stuff that got changed when Lucas decided to throw out everything and kind of redo his whole prequels,
Well, which
which
is
I
what
could
they
live
they
with.
still they still they still kept that. They just moved it to 1,000 years before during the
Yeah.
old knights, just after during Exar Kun and all that stuff.
Yes.
But um, but even like the alien stuff and the predator stuff, Alien Earth was trash. I'm sorry, but like you just there were
That is
some good
a world
elements.
you can't bring to Earth. There's
Right.
just it's like the thing. The thing only works in an
The Arctic,
isolated the Arctic.
isolated section. Yeah.
If it got to anywhere else, I mean, it might survive in the desert, but there's still animals in the desert. In the Arctic, there is nothing except for maybe the dogs, seagulls, or Arctic birds. Um, but there's
Sea
nothing.
lions.
It's isolated to an environment. But they were so far away from the pack ice, you wouldn't see them. And
Oh
there are
yeah.
polar bears in that region. So,
Hmm.
I mean, it was that isolation that allowed for that kind of story to be told. If you take that into um, a town on the ocean somewhere, the jungle, don't God forbid the jungle,
Well,
or a
that was
city, you take it to a city, it's over with.
well, that was the whole thing with AVP 2. I mean, it was like they had alien eggs on Earth in a neighborhood. I mean, technically, both those movies took place on Earth, but
I've never liked, I mean, I
one of
never
them,
liked those, but you got to give the first one took place in an Arctic region
correct, it did. Right.
and
So they at least
isolated,
kept it isolated.
isolated.
So,
But that second movie I hated because where it took place.
yeah.
Because and nuking it wasn't going to be enough because if it had got
No.
to an animal that could run away and
Or
flee, it would have
fly.
been done. It would have been over with.
Yeah, anything that could fly to sit there and cocoon other humans to make more face hugger eggs. No, that was like someone who wrote that script needs to go and watch the movie Puppet Master, you know, how the fact that like those aliens started spreading and then they were at a point where they were going to take over. We were lucky that we found some disease that could wipe them out. And you can't do that with with aliens. Not with something that all it takes is it cocoons one, makes a face hugger, that face hugger makes another alien, they cocoon a bunch more, so it exponentially grows. That was what Blair was so
Was
worried
afraid of.
about
Yep.
in the thing.
And then they stuck him out there and isolated him, and then he was taken over because he was away from the
And
group.
I know we're getting into we're totally going off topic, but the thing is
But no,
like
no, no. But you're. Let's get back to that. I'm happy that they're making a thing. Uh, but the game, the original game was great, telling you the story. Some of the comics worked and were better
yes.
than others. Um, but the thing I actually liked the prequel thing because it gave us the story that happened before.
Before, yeah, the
And it
Norwegian
allowed, and
camp
if it had been allowed to continue, would have given us what happened immediately after,
after.
instead of waiting decades like it's going to be now. It cannot
Well, and
happen at
that's
the same time because he just, unless you're going to do CGI to de-age
de-aging.
him, it's not going to function. This has to happen later. It's going to have to be where he was rescued, he's retired somewhere, and he's living his life, and boom, he finds out something's happening, and the government comes to him and says, "Look, we need you to go back in here." He goes, "Man, I did my stuff for this. Why am I?" And somehow he gets drug into it, and he is the only one who really knows what's going on and how to fight it.
Yeah, so
Um,
we just take aliens and rewrite it to the
write it to
thing.
be,
So
yeah,
so
yeah,
we
because it's
have
the only way the story works.
so Max, you know, Max is he's a crane operator at a boom at some
No, he's a
coastal port
helicopter
somewhere.
operator. He's a helicopter pilot.
No, I know, but no. I'm making a joke, Dad,
Okay, I
because
know. I
Ripley
know.
was a
Yeah,
she
I
was a
know.
crane
She's a,
operator. I have a blah 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 license for this.
um,
Okay.
so, but it's still the same problem. People hated it because the studio did not like the practical effects and started off, it was only going to be enhancing the practical effects and replaced it,
Yeah,
which
completely.
what alienated the hardcore old fans
Well, and
from
it was also and it also actually had a subtitle, but the studio was also the ones that made him change it to the
changing
thing.
the thing.
Yeah.
And
So,
Botan is dead. He's not here.
mhm.
We don't have Stan Winston. We don't have any of these great practical effects artists anymore. We have some still, but not a lot of them. A lot of them still rely on digital effects to enhance it, or and so and that was what was so beautiful about the first one is the practical effects were so good, and they were so good because they were so bad that they failed and they didn't know what they were doing, so they just did it. And sometimes that is just magic because if you don't know you can't do something and you do it,
And
it's just
at
it's
nights you're
that,
good.
yep,
Yeah,
it's the perfect
exactly.
form.
Um, but
Just
that's the
remember, Adam Savage is still alive, and so is Janie Heimerman.
true.
Hyman isn't, I mean, is never going to come and do something like this, but Savage might be a good person to do some of this the effects.
Yeah, but thing is, you know that they've trained and had people study under them.
No, yeah,
They're just not
but
talked
see,
about.
Hyman left America and he went and retired in some I forget
Well,
where it was he went to.
I think that once things start moving with this, you're going to have people that have been fans that have been doing creature creation, prop. practical effects for theater and other small indie things that are going to be like, I want to be on this because this is going to be my thing to make me famous for something else. Because if we have a movie that breaks through, think of like there's a game called Expedition 33 that came out, Clair Expedition 33. Indy, France, a team of 30 people made this. It's actually been nominated for 10 Game of the Year awards this year, or for the VGAs. And it's broken records. It is showing that like turn-based combat is viable in this day and age where everybody thinks that only games can be action-based because we don't have the attention span to be playing an RPG with stuff like that.
No, that's
Uh,
crazy because role-playing games, D&D is back. All these role-playing games exist. There's
no,
a
but
market for it.
video games are what I'm talking about, not tabletop. Video games. There's this big
Yeah.
thing because Square, which goes into the whole thing I think we're talking about too, is that Square is like thinking that they can't make a proper Final Fantasy game that can be turn-based anymore because it alienates the new broader audience they got for the action-oriented stuff, and that's bullshit.
Well, what if you combine it? If you give a
You
blend of
could,
both, you're going to capture both those audiences. You're
you
going to
could.
also reintroduce it to these new audiences, something they might not have know about and not have
Exactly.
experienced.
So, and that's the thing is like, hopefully, with this, if it happens, when it happens, and we get him to make it all the way through this, because I mean, he is definitely much younger than Mel Brooks, and we're getting the search for more money, at least.
Yeah.
Carpenter will finish this movie, and we can actually have something that's like breaks the mold. Because people are going to come and watch this movie, especially if it's got great practical effects, maybe enhanced with CGI, with his storytelling, Kurt Russell coming back. I mean, technically,
Okay, now I'm going to
It's
go off on
got
a
most of the
tangent
red
here because you
elements.
mentioned Mel Brooks and the fact that we're going to get a Spaceballs too. Okay, there was a different time and place for humor when Spaceballs History of the World came out.
correct.
I was not happy with the History of the World Part Two. There were some segments that were freaking sweet and hilarious. There were some that I was like, okay, why is this here? And it's because the modern audiences and the people who helped write it, they don't.
They
It's a
didn't all
different
get it.
type. It's a different type of humor now.
Yeah.
Um,
I
um,
agree with that by and large. There were just they ran with uh it's like they only picked I and yeah, it was in the spirit of the first one
yes.
where they only had so many segments and everything like that, but they kept bouncing back between the same two or three rather than chunk it.
Well,
It was disjointed for me.
and what it was, it comes to this whole thing, and Colin, I don't mean to skip you. I just want to add this part to coincide with what you're talking about. It's felt very Saturday Night Live
Yes,
than it did a Mel Brooks film
or
Yes,
feature.
I
for
agree
a feature.
100% with that.
Yeah,
There's a
Uh,
different type of humor of sketch comedy, and that I mean, if you go to the first movie where um the Roman Empire part, which was hilarious, there were a lot of in
oh
jokes. It
yeah.
was still could have been a movie all in its own
yes.
instead of a sketch. Just like when they did the French Revolution. That was
Any
still
one of
funny
those
moments, but it was could have been a long uh,
longer
format
form.
movie. The new one was all sketch comedy and not where it could have been a long movie on its own. And I look back at other movies like the Corsican Brothers, any Monty Python movie, even the Cheech and Chong movies, which those kind of movies, they were long format where the story, and even what was the one with it was Keith or Sutherland and one other character. They played the twins who were flipped at birth. Um, and so the twins, ended up being Donald Sutherland with another actor, where Donald Sutherland was twins and the other actor were twins. And at the end, they actually betray each other, and then they break off into being the separate brothers, where they're the Donald Sutherland twins are together, and the other one I can't remember what it is. And it had Orson Welles, and he helped write the movie, and I can't remember what it was, but it was another one of those films where it was hilarious. There were stick comedy, even the Three Musketeers and Four Musketeers, which was really good, but it had comedy in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Mhm.
And that's not what happens now. What the comedy is just for the bit instead of the whole driving the story. Now, that's not to say that in history of the world we didn't have small bits. You know, Takamata, that whole singing, dancing segment, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was a throwback to the, but it was still in its own place, and it played well because we were skipping through history, but it felt like one cohesive story, which
Well,
story
and I think that was the
the other one
problem
did.
with the History World Part Two, is that it jumped around
It was
instead
very
of them
disjointed.
progressing through time as the story
Yes.
went, like the
Twin,
Yeah.
original movie did.
Yeah.
And maybe it would have helped if they got the guys that wrote the last couple of seasons of Red Dwarf, because they technically did a skit with meeting Jesus and all that stuff in Red Dwarf. I think it was like season 10 or season 11. And I think it would have helped with organizing the way the flow of the story was. But
but I mean, I love Woodruff. My favorite episode is the one where they go to the backwards planet where everything happens in reverse, and he squats to take a, and one goes up in him. And man, I died. I mean, I was literally dying when I first watched that, and I missed those watching those things with Ray
yes,
because just um, and you couldn't get that done today.
No.
I
well,
mean,
not
we've
now.
tried.
I mean,
You look at, okay, like the Naked Gun TV series, which led to the Naked Gun movies.
Oh,
When
Police Squad.
somebody tried to mimic that today, it doesn't work. They don't make any money. They aren't, all of the National Lampoon movies, they don't work now. I
No.
mean, I don't even
well,
think you
Naked, the
can
new
get
Naked
a,
Gun, the
I
remake. I
don't
mean,
look
the
at
new Naked Gun.
Caddyshack. I There's Caddyshack, which was
Yes,
just a disaster that turned into a beautiful film, and then there was the disaster that turned into the sequel. I mean,
Yes.
I love Dan Aykroyd, but I'm sorry, that was a horrible movie. Never should have been
That
made
no, that
because
should have
they
never
tried to
happened.
recapture lightning in a bottle, and sometimes you can't.
No, that
Uh,
Caddyshack should have been a standalone movie and just left it alone.
well, I mean, because you think about it though, Liam Neeson as playing the son of Leslie
I
Nielsen
love the
for,
remake. I do. I
and
do think it was funny. The whole part where they were in
it
bed
did well.
and
It
they
did
did the
well.
hands when they were all
Yeah.
over, and I was dying. Except that ending felt so contrived. I was like, "Where's my ending? This is not an ending to a film." Um,
Well, you think about like you had the Dragnet TV series, and then you had the movie with Tom
which
Hanks,
what
and
total two
which
total do total two total
two
different
different
stuff.
tube
One
tones,
was a strict procedural
right?
drama,
And then one was
and
a
it
comedy.
was a comedy, and that worked
It
because they were
did.
spoofing what we saw on television.
Hmm. And we
Um,
could do that back then. It's hard to do that now, or at least people wanting to take the risk to see if that's going to work for television or
yes.
or for film. And going back to the main topic of this is the fact that like there's a lot of people that are just hating on stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't understand other than like
Because it's
hate.
not about the product, it's about them being an influencer. They have to
Correct.
hate something.
Yeah.
Influencing now has become not about creating or building up, it's about hating and destroying and taking something down. And you get more of an audience by being a hater than you do of going, hey, this is really good. And
Hmm.
it's gone back to, I told you, back when I was in when I went to class about advertising, they taught us that word of mouth, you get more word of mouth through hate, and you get more of an audience through hate than you do by being positive feedback. Um, and so you have to figure out a way around that. Uh,
Hmm.
and so with everybody needing to build themselves up and and build up their own ego, they don't give anything a chance. But there's a few we know, like the guy who does Viper Island for GI Joe. His all about building up, and he has no problem calling out a problem.
Correct.
It's just like
Well, constructive
Roanoke.
criticism
I
is
love
different.
Roanoke. He knows how to do comedy and serious, and
Hmm.
he educates while he's entertaining. And then of course there's Star Wars theory, and he does, and then the guy who does game theory. Those are people who actually build up the material they're promoting. While if something's bad, they call it out and say
Yep.
this is not how it works. But there are influencers that are devoted to nothing but breaking down and tearing up stuff.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I literally watched one guy, and I'm not going to name his name, literally just rip into the movie, and he's like, "Oh, blah blah blah, this and the other movie did it better." And it's like, do you have any none of the context he was talking about in his review reflected that he read the book or knew anything about the book? Because if you had read the book and he actually knew what he was talking about, which he didn't, he would know that this was based off the original book and not a remake of the fucking 87 movie.
Which
And
was
I,
just an action flick that was written because it was written for somebody else, and then it was
yes, it was written
made
somewhere else.
to
And
be a
they,
Schwarzenegger driven piece, which I'm sorry, Schwarzenegger cannot do Shakespeare or anything like that. He's
come
a
on,
specific
we saw it in
target.
Last Action
I
Hero.
know.
To
That's
be
why
or
I
not
made
to
that
be.
comment. I made that comment because of that scene in my head. But no, and I've got to say, Blade Runner was not do androids dream of electric sheep.
No, it wasn't.
It was a taste of it, a kiss to it, but it wasn't the same story. So if we had somebody go and do androids dream of electric sheep, would they badmouth it when it is the source material that the original movie came from? Are you going to badmouth the origin of something because it doesn't fit what your perceptions are? No, I think you're wrong because you're trying to pigeonhole something that fits into what you want versus what the original intent was. This is
Hmm.
about what Stephen King was trying to do with his original Bachman story. I was so happy that they got the walk right. It's not exactly the same, but it is at its core it's
Yeah,
true
the
to
way
the
that.
book.
Hmm.
Um, because there have been some really bad adaptations of King's work, and okay, I got to do it. The Mist, perfect movie until the end. It had captured everything King did in
Yes.
that story till the very end. And again,
Well,
that was somebody who
It did
go,
take one thing out, which was the him hooking up with the
well,
one
they took
lady.
that out and they took out the part where he made it to almost to his house.
Correct, and it
And
sees his.
he was like, and they had that dream, he had that memory of what the day was like when he had left and seeing the fog come across the lake and the damage on his house. And he was like, there's no way she can be alive. And then just that one twinge of, did she make it to the basement? Is she in the basement waiting for me? And then he looked at everybody in the car. He looked at his son and he goes, I can't risk their lives to go
Just for
back
that.
for her. And
Hmm.
that was that struck me hard in when I read that because
Yeah.
I'm always been I need to save everybody kind of person. And what where you are when you have to make that final decision, and instead of addressing that in the Darabont story, he decided to address it in a total different manner of, do I give up and I take out my family, or do I keep fighting? You
Well,
know,
not only that, the horror moral conundrum of going, oh, well, do I go with this lady risking my child's
oh
life and
yes,
my
yes.
friends to
It
go
was like he
save
was
her
being
family?
punished for not helping her.
Right. And that's
And I was like, no, I mean, I love you, Darabont, but there's a reason why you make good starting points, but you never seem to nail the, because we would never have had a good Walking Dead series if he'd stayed on it. And it got better. And look how long it lasted after he was left and forced
well,
out.
that one that I'm sorry, but like The first season was fantastic. The second season, they started on a farm way too long.
Yeah.
They were only on that farm for an issue or two,
Oh, it was
and
more than I think it was like
that
three
was it.
issues. Yeah.
Um, but we there's a reason to hate on certain things, especially if it doesn't live up to the expectations. But when you come to a film and you're already biased because you enjoyed a previous movie and you think this is a remake, even though it's not a remake, it's an adaptation.
Yeah.
I mean, because even like the Total Recall.
Well, I was going to bring that up. They actually that got bad mouth too,
Hmm.
because it wasn't what the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
Correct.
Um, Now I like We Can Remember It For You for Wholesale. And
Right.
I always liked Richards because he was an older guy. He was a guy in his late 50, I mean, late 40s or early 50. He'd been there, he'd done it, he was down and out. And then he gets involved in the whole story. Um, and we didn't get that in either of them. We got Schwarzenegger in one, and then we got Colin Farrell in the other. Neither one of these are old burnout dudes. It could have
No.
been really well if it had been like an older Gary Oldman. I could have seen that. Somebody who knows how to play an old character who is just, I'm too tired of this.
Clint Eastwood.
No,
Oh
no,
man.
no. Keep him on his horses with his guns.
You- Charles
No, I got to
Bronson.
admit, there were El Camino. I love that movie. There were
Oh
some
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
films that I really loved, but there were some I was like, yeah, no. Um, But again, that was it's another story that somebody adapted first into something totally different than the source material,
Corpse material.
and
Yeah.
then everybody expects that from that point on, and hurts the film when you want to try to go back to that source material.
Well,
Uh,
and that's where like Starship Troopers is pretty close. It doesn't have a lot of the things
no,
on it.
yeah, it's close, but no, it's not
Well,
because
it doesn't have the mechs,
no.
and it did but it did touch on a lot of the things like the fascist state, the whole
Yes, it
thing
did.
about the being to be a full citizen, you need to serve in the military for a long period of time. It talked about the female pilots. The females were particularly well at being pilots. Um,
It
and
no,
even
it kind of it kept them integrated. This was a society where women were the people on the ships. They were the pilots. They were the
yes.
fighters, and the men were the grunts. They were the people on the ground doing the fighting, and they were not together in the book. Um,
Hmm.
and that's not what they did in the book.
Right,
They
right.
integrated them so much they're taking a shower together.
Yes, true, true,
Um,
true.
but that's Van. How do you pronounce it?
Verhoeven.
Van Verhoeven. He did it for RoboCop. He did it
Yeah.
for um, that. He has this way of looking at society and bringing out the absurdity and the extreme in our society and putting
Hmm.
it on the screen for you. And it's almost like he's making fun of it, but he's not. He's making you laugh at your own
Yeah, it's satire, but
problems.
it's a different
Satire.
I can't remember the other word for it. But that's the thing is like we're getting a lot of I get this argument sometimes with some of my friends about like, there isn't a whole lot of good movies, and it's like I can at least name 10 off of on my fingers that came out this year that have been really good movies. I can name
I'm look at just off the books. The new Brandon Fraser movie looks fantastic. It's not a big action flick.
mhm.
It's more of a human piece, and everybody in it is on a journey, and I that's a good original movie. You know, um, I'm just tired of the remakes.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I know. But and that's the same thing. It's like with we've gotten some really good horror movies this year. And like there was a couple guys who were like, not my friends, just some people within our community were like, Oh man, the only good movies were the ones in the 80s and 90s, the horror movies. I'm like, there's been some really good horror movies. Where have you been? Like Weapons is fantastic.
Weapons is
Black
fantastic. I finally
Black Phone
watched
1
it,
and 2 are great.
and they don't have to be. They prove it doesn't have to be. Everybody wants gore, and there's a difference between gore and torture porn and horror. Horror
hmm
builds tension, and it builds it up, and it gives you maybe one or two jump scares, and those are there. The jump scares are to break that tension, because you can't have somebody just going up and up and up and up and up, and then they just all of a sudden are out of the film because it's so much tension. They have to break themselves away from the film. You want to build it, and then you want to give a jump scare that kind of breaks it down, gives everybody that little nervous laugh, and then you start building it up again until you ratchet it up, 100% towards the ending, and you're dragging them along with you because they're in it for the ride at that point. Too many movies. I mean, oh, The Barbarian was really good, but I don't need to see people being hacked to pieces or everything. Sometimes it's better to not show it and leave it for your mind, just
Yeah,
to insinuate what had happened, where
to
you
make
don't
it.
actually see it happen. You know,
hmm
and I don't think a lot of directors know how to do that anymore. And a lot of the greats were on shoestring budgets, so they had to improvise, and they made do with what they had, and it made the film better.
Yeah, and they had to do like God, what's the word for it? Where they had to just go out and shoot because they didn't have permits and stuff.
Guerrilla
Yeah,
shooting,
Gorilla,
yeah, filming.
yeah,
Yeah.
some of the best stuff that way.
and you know, I lo- you know, I want to see. I'm looking for the next Tarantino. Who's going to come up and take those with, and because they see cinema as something where a studio sees it as a money maker. Tarantino and those kind of directors, they make movies because they want to make, they have a story to tell. They want to make a film, and where now they have to find their own funding for it because studios are risk adverse. They're not going to take a risk on something. So, um, like, I'm sorry, I started this by saying I want to see a definitive Frankenstein, but I don't want to see 400 of them, and which is what we're going to see. There's like three or four Frankenstein movies coming.
Yeah,
And I'm like, okay, you're going to saturate it, oversaturate it, and none of them are going to be any
Well,
good.
and that's the thing is like I've been seeing so many trailers every time I've gone to the theater. Every like trailer spot has been the bride, and I'm like I was intrigued, but it's like I'm getting tired of seeing this trailer, and it's the same trailer, so you just kind of get burnt out. But I mean I'm looking forward to seeing it. Christian Bale's always really good.
See, and I want to bring up something. Indiana Jones, the Indiana Jones Chronicles were really good,
Oh
you know,
yeah,
and it was a good helping us bring up to where Indy was originally.
yes,
But Indiana Jones is a film that could be a CGI film, and we could have tons of them telling other stories of young Indy, where we have Harrison Ford doing the voice,
yes,
because they do voices where they de-age the voice as well. Um, or there are people who sound can mimic. I mean, friggin' Mark Hamill can do a spot on Harrison Ford, and there are a few other actors who can do it too. Um,
they're worried about your face, and we have bigger problems.
and
He always says that.
why are we? I don't understand why that I still don't understand what the hell was the point of the the dial bar of soap of destiny, that we got when there were so many great novels, books that carried on Indy's, you know, journey,
yes,
and you could have picked one of those up and done them into a script. You know, this fear of taking a book that is successful and adapting it. There are tons of Star Wars books that could have been done into movies. Why they had to come up with the original story, and I realize it's because studios are all about licensing and IPs, and
Yeah.
Hmm.
they have to pay for a license of a book that they don't create themselves, and the characters that are created in those books have to pay a fee on. They have to, because now it's all about ownership. Um, and that is what was happening when we did Indiana Jones. What happened when they did Star Wars is they were trying to create characters that they controlled the IP for and merchandising for. And then we need to get rid of that. We need to go back to good storytelling. I just rewatched Sorcerer, which I saw it when I was younger. I saw it snuck in the theater and I watched it. And I watching it on my television, I was like, got so into the story. I was pulled back into being that kid in watching it. I'm watching on my TV and I'm thinking I'm back in the theater as a kid. And I started to smell the popcorn and that smell of the theater I watched it. And Sorcerer was a character driven Roy Scheider with a bunch of foreign actors with him. And it's a film. It starts off where we find out the backstory of all four of these guys who at one point at the end are driving through a rainforest with truckloads of nitro bad dynamite that had sweated down to, so in the bottom of the boxes the it had turned into nitroglycerin, and one shake of this would blow up. And that journey was so intense. The first half got you there, and then it tells you why they need to escape and why they need this money and how desperate they are to take this job. And the rest of it is that journey through the forest.
Yeah.
And they don't make movies like that anymore at all. And we need to kind of go back to basics, I think, in filmmaking and rediscover what is important in filmmaking. And yes, I'm glad we've still got Cameron. He's still going to be doing Avatar. We've got these films that we've always wanted our whole life to see on the big screen. And now we got the technology to do it, but they might not get done because they don't want to pay for the licensing for it. So if
That,
that's
yeah.
the case, hire people to create new stories for you. Hire writers to create a good story, and then have the bean counters come in and say, hey, okay, this is your budget, and then get out of it and allow that budget to stand. Don't come in and try to go, oh, we don't like how the film's going. We don't feel that we can back it. So we're going to cut your budget in half. And if the film is something you love and you think it's going to be great, give them the money to finish the film. Um, and I think we need to get away from these big actor driven things, except unless you're going to do a big tentpole movie, because half your budget is going to pay these actors massive salaries,
Yeah, which eats into the
and
production,
it eats into the production of it.
the props
And
and
or another
Yeah.
thing they could do is start giving them a percentage of the profits. But studios have figured out how to show that the movie made no money when it did, but they play with the books and make it where, oh, we didn't make any money, we can't pay you the percentage we promised you. And then they've got to go get an attorney who then gets into the hires an accountant who digs in the books. They, man, you made a ton of money on this, you're lying. And then they got to behind the scenes come up with a deal where they pay
Negotiate.
out the money, negotiate a buyout to make it where, you know it's become too political. And when I say political, I don't mean like in politics. I mean it in the bureaucracy of
The
what's
bureaucracy and the intrigue and
hmm
the the the
make a
backstabbing,
movie.
backbiting.
But yeah, that whole backstabbing stuff is just ruining Hollywood. And
Yeah.
that's why a lot of the good movies we're getting are not made here anymore, or they're independent films.
Right.
And
Now,
but they're even taking that over. What appears to be an independent film is a studio film. It's not an independent film anymore.
right.
It's made that way to appear it. It's kind of like, remember what happened with all the found footage films. Those started out as independent films, and then studios started making them, and they flooded the market with.
Yeah, and they become crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing
I
I'd
took
like
this
to
way
add
long.
to that, everything you said was great. One thing I want to add to that is if they want to start over and get back to the storytelling and back to the craft, one thing that they need to get back to is go start finding the unknowns.
Mm-hmm. I
Create
believe
the
that.
next star.
Next star. Yeah.
Stop hiring payroll cash cow. Stop hiring the scars gars. You know, they do not have to be in every third movie you're looking at.
Well, and
Oh,
and then
and
also
Give
studios,
somebody else a chance. Peter
there's
remember,
Dinklage
tons
is
of
not the only little man out there.
this isn't the first time it happened. Studios ran into the problem even back then where stars were too big and they ate too much of the budget. We didn't make
Yeah,
$1 million movies back then. You know, we were lucky to make a $10 million movie, and 25 million was a successful film. That doesn't
right.
work anymore. But what they did was you had your tentpole movie where you had like A Bridge Too Far, which had every actor that was ever popular at that time in it.
Right.
Um, and and then you had your more movies where the up and comings were there, and they were modest budgets, so the profits were larger for the studio. And then the big budget movies were what helped kind of padded their profit margins.
Right.
Um,
Help straighten out the books for the year.
yes.
well, and
Uh,
then on top of that, but we also need new stories. And of course
oh, we do. We need original stories.
there's
Yes.
tons of books out there that people can adapt. There's quite a few books that Stephen King has done just recently that have been would be really cool as theatrical films, but it's a matter of, getting the right director to do it, to that wants to do it, having the funding to make it happen and come to real life.
Having a
Right? For
studio with the right vision for it. Yeah.
Yeah. But just not even just Stephen King. There's tons of authors out there that write great stories. There have been some really cool games that would be cool to be adapted into a theatrical film that still haven't been done. I'd love to see a Metal Gear movie or a Half-Life movie. I think it could be done easily, but whether someone wants to do it that has the vision, that's a fan, and not be something that's let's paint by numbers and get it out there, and we'll see how it goes.
Like they're going to do with Legend of Zelda.
It
Which
looks
looks
good. It
good.
looks good.
Ah,
But I'm going to say we are only seeing stills.
yeah.
And
Correct.
so you can't judge a story from still. You got to who is doing the writing of it. That's who I want to know. You know, if you've got the visionaries from the game involved and some of the original game writers, and you have somebody who really knows how to tell a good story writing on it, you're going to have something good. The problem is that money always comes back into it, and then they start trimming or they change the story. They start second guessing themselves. That's what I'd like to see them stop doing, second guessing themselves. Because when they do, they actually end up ruining what could have been
Hmm.
something really
Yeah.
good. You know, Peter Jackson did not second guess himself on Lord of the Rings at all. He just was this driving focus that pushed it through. He's like, your anchor person on tug of war.
Yeah.
Or if you're doing something where you're trying to push a group back, both of y'all are pushing on. He just was that person who drove it through. But they had somebody on the set who was trying to control him, the budget, trying to second guess him. And lucky enough, Peter had somebody who was on his team who helped and did just as much work to help it happen as he did. You know,
Hmm.
you need a good team behind you to help keep your vision alive and keep your story alive because too many chefs ruin the soup. It's true in food, and it's true in movie making, and it's true in writing a book. It's
Absolutely.
true in comics. You know, um, if you have competing visions for a comic, it's never going to be successful.
Or if you have 4 or 5 titles with the same character,
Yes.
eventually it's going to get, you know, it's going to be a Batman thing, or it's going to be a Superman family, or, you
Well, I
know,
think with Superman and Batman, as long as you tell a different aspect of their life, it gets good. But when you do too many stories to where they conflict with each other, and they're
Exactly.
getting a total different version of Batman than what the other stories, that was something that was different from back in the day than it is today. You had a curator, um, the person who I used to know the word. I used to use it all the time. They were like a librarian. They knew what the
Yeah.
stories were, and they kept you from, oh, you can't do that. This was done over here.
Quality control,
Right.
basically.
Yeah. And now it's like, oh, just do whatever you want. And
Yeah.
then you get all disjointed stories. You get like, okay, which is the real Batman? It's kind of what's going to happen in the movies now. I think with, I like what they're doing with the Elseworld in DC, but I think people on your audience, there are audiences who are going to go, which one is the real Batman?
Yeah.
You can't, they don't understand it's a multiverse of, you have a lot of younger people who can handle it. You have a lot of constant people who've read that kind of stuff for years, but you have these just first time audiences who might not have ever seen it till it was on TV. Like, remember when Batman, the TV show came on, everybody thought that that's what Batman was, but it wasn't. But it's what Batman became because
Yep.
they
Public
Yep.
wanted to
opinion.
capture that audience.
Yeah, the public opinion
Yeah.
changed because of the
Um,
the predominance of the TV show.
TV show.
And
So,
and if we didn't have that TV show, we probably wouldn't have had those two god awful Batman movies that I will stand on to
no,
this
no,
day.
but you know what else? That Batman was failing on its sales. That TV series
Revived it.
Oh yeah,
revived.
yeah, I understand, but I mean, we wouldn't have had Bat Nipples and
No, no, no. We wouldn't have had Schumacher,
and
who loved the TV series and had never picked up a comic book. Which is Burton was different. Burton had read all the older comics, and so that's what he saw Batman as. You need somebody with a vision of the entire picture. You have to have people who can focus on the trees, and you have to have somebody who can look at the bigger picture and see the whole forest.
hmm
Yes.
I mean, because yeah, I love making the quotes from Mr. Freeze, "Chill, the Iceman cometh." But no, I'd rather have had like Robin Williams play him or well,
Bradley.
actually
No, I
technically it was
wanted. No,
Patrick
no,
Stewart.
I'm sorry.
I know, Patrick Stewart technically was the original
Yeah, I
casting for it,
wanted
and
Robin Williams for
it's
the
just
Riddler.
Riddler. I know. Um,
Right. I love Jim Carrey. That was not the Riddler. I love
Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones. He was not Two Face.
nope.
He was they were derivatives of the Joker.
Uma
Uh,
Thurman was not Poison Ivy.
no,
They were caricatures
She
of.
I love me
she
some Uma.
tried.
I'm
I
sorry, I
mean,
love me some Uma Thurman.
she's
Yeah, she
gorgeous,
tried.
Yeah, she tried.
but
She
but it,
tried,
But
but they,
I'm
it,
sorry.
I blame the script on that one.
Yes,
oh,
and the vision of
in the
what
vision,
they're trying to do.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
mean, because I love me and Ray used to sit and watch friggin' the Avengers, old British TV show, every season. And if it was reruns, we'd watch it again. We both loved it. So when we both went and saw the movie, we were both going to be the best judge to see how the other person took that film. And we both walked out of it going, I loved it. They played everybody perfect. Ray Fiennes playing John Steed was, you had Uma Thurman playing Peel. It was just fantastic. Sean Connery was over the top in that, but he played a perfect villain. And I love that movie, and I wish they had done another movie, but they didn't do it. It didn't make enough money for them. They have a vision of what is a blockbuster, and if it doesn't hit that target, no matter how much money they make off of it, it's never going to be
Well,
a success.
it's hard to pull something out of the ethos that hasn't been in.
Don't say it hadn't been on television because it had been adapted through two more times as a series
But how? But hold
for
on.
each generation. Doctor
But
Who is a great example of that. It wasn't until they got so far away from what Doctor Who was about that the series struggled.
Yeah.
And the
oh,
only
it's
the only two times it ever made it to film with Peter Cushing playing the Doctor, it
mhm.
was that he wasn't even
No, but
the same Doctor.
okay. But it's like you taking Starsky and Hutch that hadn't been on on air since
Yeah,
whenever,
and
and
turning
then
it into a
into a
comedy,
comedy for almost a newer audience, but it wasn't even like same thing
I
with
thought,
21 Jump Street, that
which got two movies.
which was horrible.
Yeah.
My
And on
name is
top of it,
Jeff.
yeah,
But
and let's
I loved Chips, the movie Chips. That was fantastic. I thought it was just the right amount of humor to make that. I loved it. I enjoyed it.
mhm.
I never saw that.
Um,
But it's one of those things though when you pull a show that hasn't been on air in a while and hope that people are going to gravitate to it. Because I think when the last time the Avengers show aired versus when that movie came out, there's probably quite a bit of distance, right, time wise.
I
And
don't know.
that's what I'm saying is that
Okay, so wait a second. Now that you're saying that, Ryan Gosling playing Steve Austin, $6 Million Man remake based on the book Cyborg, which was what the original story was based on, would fit today, would make an awesome movie, and would be more practical today since we have cybernetics.
correct and it could work because the thing is that the $6 Million Man still has influence in things today. Like you still hear sometimes when people are moving fast, you have the no 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 that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
it's
That's
become part of
that's
our lexicon.
correct. Versus the Avengers,
Just
which was
like
something
whenever
different.
you're like seeing
It's like,
somebody looking, you hear that boop, boop, which was for his when he was like using his eye to see a long distance. That, you know, and then the strength was always the fast, and the strength was that.
yeah,
I love that sound. And I've seen movies that use that when somebody jumps and they just stick that in,
yeah.
and you're like you bust up laughing, and people are like, what is that?
hmm
It's just an inside
So, but like,
people who are passionate about.
here's one that works, right? Is the Fall Guy. That show hasn't been on it forever, but that movie with
It
Ryan
was
Gosling was
funny,
was was great.
right? But it
Um,
wasn't. It wasn't.
It wasn't
It
marketed
wasn't. It
properly.
wasn't the Fall
no, it
Guy,
wasn't.
but
No, it
it was
wasn't.
still great.
No, it was. Yeah, it was still great. Um, but I still want, that goes back to the whole thing. I want Nice Guys too. So, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
I don't know, man. I've seen how big he's gotten for the new Nuremberg movie where he's playing what's his name during the Nuremberg trial, the Nazi. I can't remember what his name was, and he's like, I don't know if that's padding or that's just all in that. He just letting it all go.
You talking about Crow?
I'm like about Crow. I was like, dude, man, that's
Well,
a
we saw him in like Craven, and he was pretty bulky, but he still had that
yeah,
tummy.
that
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
He was
He's
still a bad. He
chonkers.
was still a badass in that film.
Yeah.
At playing the father, you
hmm
you wouldn't
Yeah,
think he looked like he could take you out still, but when he played Zeus,
yeah.
I was like,
Chonkers.
yeah, I
Oh
was
Yeah.
my
like,
word!
no,
Yeah.
man, this
Yeah.
is not the.
You're just
If
waiting
he'd
for him
have
to give
showed up
birth.
in, if we know that he died in Gladiator 2, I mean Gladiator 1, but I could still see him showing up as the father with a beer in hand and a big old thing of salami, going, son, I survived. I really didn't die. You know, no, I'm just there's certain he's
Well,
got.
you know what? He'll just hang out with Christian Bale and go on his Method Man diet. The whole like,
I would love to see Crow back to his because there's a couple of other films I'd like to see him do a sequel to. Um,
okay,
I'm a
so
big fan of what is it? The Hollywood movie that they did with
Was
him
it?
and Guy Pearce, and where they were about the movie cover up and the police that
oh,
were
Hollywood Confidential. I mean,
confidential.
LA Confidential,
LA
not Hollywood.
Confidential. Man, that was
Hollywood.
such a great movie. I would love to see a sequel to that.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but now it wouldn't work now. It's just like the gangster movie that had Josh Brolin in it and had everybody in it, where they were doing the same thing. They were hired by the chief of police to take out the gangsters any way they could. I miss that kind of filming. Even the Untouchables which was really nothing like the old TV show. It was
Yeah.
still fantastic. I would
Yes.
love to see another movie like that. We need some of those old movies to remind us what
Well,
it was
that's why
like.
The Order was so good with Jude Law. You know, it's set in the 70s during that whole the process with the guys that cult that started, the ones that were trying to bomb everything.
Um,
Oh, the weather on the ground.
It was like they were like white supremacist neo-Nazi type people, but back in the 70s.
Oh, because
It's
I
actually
don't
it's
remember
based
who
off a
that
real
is.
story.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that
That
was a
would be the
fantastic.
IRA. But
Well, and that would be the IRA was in England. I mean,
yeah,
they were doing it against. They were the Irish who were doing it against England because of their.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, because of the troubles. But thing is, the only group that I can think of during the 70s that were problematic because of bombings was Weather Underground. So I
No,
don't.
there was some bombings of churches. Like what's his name? The guy who
Well, they
he
were the guys
bombed
were
the
robbing
black church
they were
that killed
robbing
the
banks and doing
three
other
girls.
stuff too.
He was
Oh,
supposedly
that
a
would be
part
like
of the
militia stuff.
he was part of a
Yeah.
organization that was part of the KKK and stuff like that. That they were doing. They were cells.
Uh
They were like terrorists in America. They were splinter set. They were cells that were splintered, but they
sorry,
were
83 it was 83. So Bruce Pierce and Gary Yarbrough
well.
lure
During the
Walter West
'80s,
out of the
we had
West.
like um,
Yeah.
the Waco and then the bombing
Ruby
of
Ridge, and
yeah.
then Oklahoma City,
Oklahoma City
and
is what I was thinking of because
Hmm.
they that was a
then the Olympic
direct
Park bombing.
retaliation for Waco. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, but because Waco, Ruby Ridge, Oklahoma City, and the Olympic Park bombing were all connected
all together, all because of
because of
the event.
the the word for it, not because they were like militias and stuff like
Malicious,
that, and
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, in which we still have their descendants today. Um,
yeah,
they
But I
didn't
mean,
say that's still here.
it would be cool to see
the Montana Freeman.
more period pieces done between anything like cop dramas, whatever. But we're not getting a whole lot of that stuff.
You
No,
could
I would like to see a movie about what Houston was like back in the '70s
right.
with the corrupt cops and what was going on and the murders that were happening. We need some of that stuff to remind people because we're so more far removed from it, they've forgotten how bad it is when police are corrupt, when they're left
Hmm.
to their own devices and the cover-ups and the power structures that were existing that allowed them to kill with impunity. We need more stories like that. It doesn't
I'd
even have
love.
to be that. I would love to see some more pure science fiction stories.
Oh yeah, we
Everything that
definitely need
science
some good
fiction
science
now
fiction
is a
stuff.
is a horror movie. There's
Well,
no
that's what the Hail Mary project looks really good with Ryan Gosling, where he goes to find out why the star is dying. They go to that area, he
yes, yeah,
meets
but
the
we've already
alien.
seen that story again. That's the Martian. What was the one with all right, all right, all right, where he went to
Oh,
McConaughey.
McConaughey,
Interstellar.
Interstellar. Those are
Yeah.
all in that same vein, and like Contact, which was with what's her
Well,
Um,
and then
Jodie
there
Foster.
Jodie
the
Foster. Yeah.
core,
Um,
the the core with Aaron Eckhart, where they went into the middle of the earth to try
yeah,
to
man,
jumpstart
that's
that.
kind of an older movie that was then, which was really good. But we had a series of movies like that where they were going to save the earth from something. They banded
Yeah,
together, they build something, and then halfway through, they've got to start sacrificing themselves to complete it. And I
yep,
was like, man, can't any of them make it through without dying at the end?
really.
Always end up with a guy and a girl. It's always the
Yeah.
guy and the girl that make it through the end.
It's
Um,
like it's like if everything falls apart, they're the Adam and Eve that restart everything. All
but
right.
I'm thinking I would like to see like I thought the remake of Day the Earth Stood Still was really good. I really thought it was a good update of that classic story.
Yeah, with
But I
Keanu.
would like to see something like This Island Earth, um, or something else. Man, Forbidden Planet in that same vein, which Forbidden Planet was just The Tempest. It was Shakespeare's The Tempest on an alien planet.
Hmm.
And I
Well, that
just,
was the magic about like storytelling back then, is they could go and take some literary book or play, adapt it into a movie, and then we just got, whatever. It could be any some slack movie to actually some AAA title.
yeah,
That was when, the creative juices were flowing for people. Now it's like we got to make that money. Everything costs so much. And especially with the whole thing of like filming abroad tariffs, which is stupid. Um, it makes it a little harder to do stuff here because you need the locations that you go to. I mean, like,
Yes.
I don't think Tatooine for A New Hope would have worked had it been filmed in Arizona somewhere in the desert
Yeah.
versus.
no, you need, well, that you got to have a good site person coordinator who goes out and finds something that on Earth that just looks so alien.
Alien, right?
You, and then I mean, now with the technology, they can do it in one of those dome studios with that camera that just projects everything, and you're just in it immersed. Have you seen these new theaters that are popping up where
Mm-mm.
they're dome theaters where you
Yeah.
watch the film on a reclined seat and
Yeah.
you're in the film? I mean, I remember when they were playing with the technology where it could be beamed in, you wear the goggles and it would, if you, and they were testing it in some studios, you sat down, you had like one of these VR goggles. So, and all of a sudden the film is around you. So when like a herd of horses or cattle run at you, you're looking at them run past you in the film, so you're in immersed in the film. But that didn't happen. Technology didn't catch up like they wanted, and so it didn't happen.
Well, Back to the Future 3 kind of had that moment with him popping in with the Indians and stuff, and
Yes,
like
where they,
they're,
yeah.
yeah, that would have been a
It
perfect part for that movie, to have
that kind
that.
of leads me to a point now. We Technology comes in and it kind of leads us like into one place, and then it does this 380 and takes you into total. Betamax was outdone by VHS. VHS was outdone by DVD, and then all of a sudden we had 4K, which blew that out of the water. Um, and I'm seeing a similar pattern occurring with AI, where we thought AI was going to take us in this one direction, and now they're going off in this other area with this whole new version of AI.
Hmm.
I was listening to a news broadcast where they were saying that they think it's going to go in a total different direction than where people have thought, and companies have put a lot of money into where they thought it was going to go, and those companies are going to lose out because it's shifted away from them, like what happened with Betamax and everything else. So we really don't know where this technology is going to lead us, but I do like it where it's a combination of old technology like a movie, but it's shown to you in a different way, to where it uses your own optical and the way the brain operates on what it
Hmm.
sees to give you a whole new immersive uh, experience in a film. Um, I can think of Jaws. I'd love to see Jaws in that. There are certain movies I'd love to see in this surround sound domed vision. Um, just movie. Man, I could think of watching 2001: A Space Odyssey in that, where you're Bowman going into the monolith with his ship, and you're going through that warp field. That would be just such a great experience. But I kind of took us off track on that.
Well, limit on that, the immersion thing. Somewhere I have a CD with the full immersion audio, full surround sound of The Mist. Basically taken right from the book, just read from the book, but done with the full cast and the full immersion
I
thing.
used to have that.
Yep.
In,
That was a little gem in the field of audiobooks. And
And they were doing several books like that.
Yeah, and it was amazing. If they could translate that
What the hell
to
happened?
a movie, that would be fantastic. Dude, and which is
Yeah, you
basically
used to
what you
have
were
that.
just saying.
Yeah.
I have the CD somewhere and I have no clue. I haven't listened to that thing in ages. I really need to find it.
Well, I mean, the same thing
See, I
with the
forgot about it till you reminded me, and then I was like, I had that. I remember us listening to it, um,
mhm.
and it had the sound effects and
Oh
everything.
yeah, it was a
With
full audio
the,
cast drama.
yeah,
And then it was from the book because they didn't leave out any
no,
of the
no, they
hookup
didn't. It
scene.
was yeah, and I love an unabridged book. I
Yeah,
don't like abridged when you're doing an audio or you're doing a movie. I want, or you're doing like one of those, like I've got like a couple of interactive, like The Hobbit, where it was on a stage where they all the actors were together and they recorded as they were doing everything, and it's the complete story, and then they add in all the effects and everything, and I love that. And the great thing about it is it's the unabridged,
right.
not the edited down.
Which
So
is always the way to go, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and in I mean, we've gotten really good productions with the old radio dramas and stuff, or
yeah,
just presentations. I mean, you think of the
I
Jeff
still
Wayne
have some of those.
World of Worlds. Even some of the audiobooks now where they do a full production. But
Yeah,
there was a group that did a zombie story. Was it? Oh, come on, what was it called? Let me look at my thing real quick. But that whole thing was a full production cast.
right.
Are you talking about the one that you let me listen to?
Yeah, like
Oh
we're
yeah, it
alive.
was
We're
a
alive.
series of
Yeah, we're
books.
alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was released as it was four. It was a four series audio drama where this full cast of characters were doing all the full actors doing characters and stuff, and it's them having to survive the zombie apocalypse, living in this apartment complex, them having to fight
Going to go
not
out.
only
They had
the
the
zombies but other people.
military, yeah. And then there
Yeah,
was one group that came in and tried to invade them.
yeah,
I
and it
really love
was
that. That was so good.
yeah, we're alive is
And
what
you
it
could
was called.
hear. I mean, you had it was so well done that you saw it in 'cause that
Yeah,
gets back to that
Yes.
theater of the mind. You actually close your eyes and you're witnessing a movie in your head
hmm
because it's just wit. And then the way the same actors would do multiple voices and could change
voices, yeah,
their
of
Yep.
different
voice
characters and stuff.
to be
Yeah,
different characters. Man, I remember that. Oh,
And then there's that British company that did a lot of the comic books with full cast, like
hmm
Superman Live, The Death of Superman and Superman Lives, and then Nightfall.
I really love some of the stuff that the Brits did back in the day because they had a different,
Perspective on it.
yeah, where we were censoring here. Some of the stories were more adult
Right.
in the comics, especially the adult magazine comics, because even like the Savage Sword of Conan, the Savage Hulk, and all those other magazines we used
What
to
was
hear were edited down, and theirs even showed some nudity for the Conan.
right? What was the other one there? Something 2000 or whatever.
They did a 2001 Space Odyssey
No, no.
adult one. They did
It
a
was a
making fantasy because I one of my favorites was the first two issues were an adaptation of the Day of the Triffids, which was fantastic.
Oh, that's another one that's
right.
a good production on.
Now the one I'm talking about was the UK one where they originally had Judge Dredd,
Oh, something AD.
2080.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a really fun release when you could get a hold of one of those,
yeah.
because that was that this is how the story is supposed to be told, and you really got yeah, they were a little bit more because they're imported, but they were still great stories, great characters, things like that.
What amazed me is there was like one that I was working for a guy in his shop, and he had a bunch of imported old horror magazines, and there was some in French, so I couldn't understand what was being, but
Oh,
you could figure it out through the story, what you were watching, what you were reading, and there were some that were from Spain, which were horror, and one of them was really great, and because it I had bought it when we were traveling. We went in over into Mexico. We were going up into the mountains with my dad. We were going on a trip. We stopped at this place, and there was a horror magazine, and I convinced him to buy it for me. And then my mom goes, "Let me see this," and she was like looking through. She goes, "Okay," and she handed it back, and I was like, "What are you looking for?" She goes, "I just want to make sure it was appropriate for you." And the first page I turned to, there's this big breasted woman. Okay, mom, thank you. But there was a story, and it was a science fiction story of it was called The Ambassadors or something like that. And it was mankind's first contact. And we go to a planet, and we come to a planet, it's all women. They're men, but they're slaves. And so this is a whole crew of men. They land here, and they end up making trade, and we have all this communication, and we're working with this planet. And this ambassador who was part of that first mission falls in love with one of the higher women there, and he convinces her to come and live with him on Earth, where most of the time everybody has to go live there. And on his wedding, he before he left, they do a dual wedding. They have a wedding there, and then he comes here to live there. They serve this tray of spiders, and they're kind of, they're dead, they're stuffed with all this stuff, and the women are just eating them, and he's like, no thank you. And then and the food is really odd. So after that, they get on a space flight, and they you sleep because it's long distance. You're in cryogenic sleep. You make it. He gets, and when he arrives, they go, and it's all this beautiful futuristic home, and they haven't even had a chance to consummate their marriage yet. So it's their wedding night, and they make love, and then she goes and she's showering, and then he's looking at something, and at some point he goes to check on her, and she's turned into this massive spider, and she eats him. And I was like, and I've always been fascinated with giant spiders. Always think I was like, that story. I reread that magazine on that, and that story. There was that one, and then there was one about a conductor at a rail yard, and this train comes in, and it's got chains all over everything, and he's told that not to let anybody near this rail car, and it ends up some guys think it's got treasure in it, money in it, and they break into it, and they unleash a vampire that's in it, um, and it kills them, and then this one little kind of pudgy looking conductor dude who has to take on this vampire, and he wins. He kills it in the end, but he does it where it's coming at him, and he tricks it, and it impales itself on a piece of wood. Um, those are my two favorite stories in there, and they were uh, they were in English though. They had like subtitled English on it. It was in Spanish on the bottom, and it had like an English at the top. And they were both from that book. And I don't remember where that magazine went. I don't know if my mom threw it out eventually, but I've never been able to find it again, ever. I have looked, believe me, I've looked through Erie, and I've looked through all the magazines that were imported here from other countries. Um, and I still remember the cover. It had a woman hiding behind a tree, and it had a big moss-like monster coming after her, and it had a zombie coming after her, and it had a vampire coming after her, and there was all these things, and she's hiding, and then behind her is a werewolf about to bite her, and she doesn't see him. It's just, and I was so into the horror back in the day when I was a kid. Man, that's what they brought me in the hospital when I was in the hospital for a long time. They brought me superhero books. They brought me a lot of Richie Rich and Casper, but I was like begging them to bring me the like House of Mystery, Tales of the Crypt, and all those creepy and all those kind of stuff. And the only one who would bring them was my mom. My dad wouldn't bring them. He would go and pick up. He wouldn't even know what he was buying. He'd just go pick up comics and bring me because I was in the hospital for over a month. And I was
Mhm.
like, back then, TV went off at night. So
Yeah, no, there wasn't anything. I mean, you guys had like what, three channels back then? It
we
wasn't
had
like
three channels, and at night after midnight, you might have the late movie, and after that, it was
The American flag,
yeah,
yep,
American
yep,
flag. Yep, yep.
the national anthem, and
anthem,
then
or it
We
was
snow.
are
that song the walk through a storm, keep
we
your
are
head
going off
high.
the air.
Yeah, and it was like, and after that, you were like, okay, I can't, because when you slept all day in the hospital, you were up all night, and I they would come in and tell me I had to turn off the light, and my mom brought me a flashlight, and I would read comics with the flashlight to keep from under the blanket, under that big white sheet and that big heavy blanket they would give you, and I would be in there reading, and then a nurse would come in to check on me and find me under there, and they'd go touch me, and I go ah, because I wasn't expecting them to come in because and I'd be reading this horror movie, this horror comic, and they were like tons of them. I left there with two boxes full of comics, or mostly horror and science
Nice.
fiction and weird war. There were a lot of weird comics like that were war based. Um, so yeah, those are my favorites. I took off on a tangent. Y'all need to stop me.
No, but that's awesome, Dad. I mean, I'd love to be able to see and find those books for you just to go look through them and stuff. But um, yeah, so we didn't get a chance to cover two of the topics, of course, which was the
Funko.
Pop Fine of Funko going out of business, and then Square Enix deciding to lay off most of their US and UK people for AI developers, which
But
sucks, but we'll talk about that another time.
With David,
Um,
we'll have David on.
yeah, we gotta get
yeah,
David on. But yeah, everyone, thank you for checking out the episode. If you have any comments about what we stated during this episode, please put them in the descriptions or the comments down below, not the description. And we'll definitely read them out on the next episode. But until then, everyone have a great Friday and great weekend, and we'll see you next episode.
Night, everybody.